What's up, everybody? Happy Tuesday evening as we are ready to break down another golf tournament here. That means it's time for Drive for Show, DFS for Dough here on Rotogrinders. We've got myself, Justin Van Zuiden, and my co-host, Derek Farnsworth, alongside once again to talk about the Genesis Invitational this week. So it should be a fun one. The golf calendar really starts to ramp up this time of year, and not coincidentally right after the football season ends. So maybe a little bit softer competition for a while. Start to see some bigger prize pools out there for golf as well. Noto's ready to go. He's out in Vegas this week, but still joining us, and he's sporting the old Riv hat there. So Noto, what's going on?
Yeah, I'm excited for this week for sure. Not a lot of positives from last week, but I did have a Scheffler outright, so that helped ease the pain a little bit. But yeah, I'm out here in Vegas for a fantasy conference with Dan and Kitchen, so that should be a lot of fun. And yeah, Riv Week. Everyone loves Riviera Country Club, one of the best fields of the year. So I'm definitely excited for it.
Yeah, this is probably the strongest field we've seen to date in terms of from top to bottom in a full field event in the calendar year here with 120 golfers. And did somebody withdraw? Let me check this too. I haven't seen. I know that we had 120 originally and just happened to look at Lineup HQ and saw that we only have 119 in there. So I'm not sure if we're missing somebody or not. We'll have to double check and make sure we've got everybody in there. But anyway, it's 120, maybe 119 golfers, invitational format. And the cut line at this event has been at or over par basically every year for the past decade. So this isn't your traditional birdie fest on the PGA Tour. This will be a tough course and lots of fun stuff to look forward to. We could take a quick look back to last week. As Noto mentioned, not the greatest DFS week, not for me either. I had a couple of 6-6 lineups, but no Cantlay and no Scheffler meant no winning, no big profits for me. And bet Cantlay on Sunday, and that ended up not going. So happy that it seemed like lots of people had some Scheffler tickets last week, but not the greatest week in DFS. Doesn't sound like that was the case for you as well.
Yeah, so you had a Cantlay ticket because you had Will Zalatoris at Farmers, right?
I had Zalatoris at the Farmers, but I bet that before the tournament started. This was just I wanted to have something to sweat on Sunday, so I bet Cantlay at like plus 200 or something when it was basically a 2 or 3 man race. So it's not like I missed out on a huge win or anything like that. I had no DFS to sweat, and I just wanted something to sweat on Sunday, and I bet on the wrong guy.
Yeah, I know that feeling far too well this year. We keep coming on the show saying, not the greatest weeks for us. So hopefully we have a good one soon. But love the Phoenix Open. I mean, the finishing stretch of that is just awesome. And I mean, we got to talk about 16. You had Sam Ryder on Saturday, just broke the internet, broke off Twitter. I watched that, highlight a bunch of times. And then on Sunday, Harry Higgs and Joel Damon taking their shirts off. I didn't even see that on Sunday. I somehow, missed it until today. So I went back and watched that. And when the camera pans back to the green and Damon's just out there, doing flipping his shirt.
The golf elitists out there were none too pleased at it, but
Oh,
got a
man.
nice crack up out of it.
Yeah, those guys are
nice.
great.
It's nice to see some entertainment in the sport. They're going for that pip money. But you've shortchanged Carlos Ortiz, and maybe you weren't aware, but he also made an ace on Sunday.
He did. He was on the podcast with Cold Nose today, so I listened to
Really?
that. He's a guy kind of like this week, which we'll get to, but yeah, so he went ace and then eagle.
Yeah.
So he went eagle.
1 and 2 on a 2-hole stretch is not too bad.
Incredible. I played him. I think I played him the day before in Showdown. So that's kind of how, my season's going so far. We could have used that the day before, but yeah, pretty cool. I mean, I love the finishing stretch there. You kind of got the feeling that nobody really took the tournament over. I mean, you had a lot of guys in the mix, and I mean, Cantlay had a chance to win it there in regulation. He missed. Tigala, got a bad bounce on 17, ended up in the water, and then he was kind of out of it. And then Scheffler had a 5-footer to win it. He missed it. Xander had like an 8-footer to get in the playoff. He missed it. And then, we finally got a winner in the playoff. But it seems like this goes to a playoff every year.
Every year, always overlaps with the football game every year. Seems like they should plan on that going forward and just start an hour earlier or something on Sunday. And it's a travesty, by the way, a travesty that they don't play 16 or 17 in the playoff. Why? Like, play the hole that's going to get you a winner faster rather than, I mean, like, I don't know. I don't think 18 is that spectacular of a hole there. I've coming off of 15, 16, 17 is a pretty neat stretch. So why you got to play 18 over and over again in the playoff?
Yeah, and I mean, that hole used to be a lot better before, guys could hit it 330.
Right, yeah, now if they're in the fairway, they're 100 yards out, and it's like a gap wedge.
And the water's basically out of play. Even if they pull it left, they're going to clear the water because I think it's like 285 now. But I remember, when we first started doing content, there was a lot of guys driving in the water on that hole. So it's become a lot easier over the years, but I agree. They need to make it to 17 for those playoffs. I don't know if it has something to do with, security, trying to usher everyone away from 16, getting everybody out of there. But I would much prefer, 17.
Agreed. Anything else, takeaways from last week? Obviously, a lot of popular players missed the cut. What's wrong with Tony Finau? That's a question that popped into my head. He played better Friday, but he just missed another cut.
There's a common occurrence with his missed cuts, and that's when he's in my lineups. So I think there's a correlation there.
This is a lot of cuts then, because we play him a lot.
And the other thing, I mean, Charlie Hoffman, if you want to talk about that, I mean, that rant he went on was something else.
Oh my goodness. And then karma came back in a big way, because then he played, I think he was dead last. And he hit. So for those of you who might not be familiar, Hoffman hit a ball out of bounds or rolled into the water on Friday, came out to take a drop, and, then walked up to see what his shot was going to be. It rolled back in the water, had to take another penalty, something along those lines, where he was complaining about having to take a second penalty. And then he hit his first 2 tee shots out of bounds on Saturday after doing that, which I thought was quite comical. But yeah, I don't know. He's just gets kind of heated, I guess. But I mean, he should just be happy to finish the tournament. He hadn't been able to do that in the longest time.
Yeah, it was just weird. And I listened to a few podcasts that broke it down like line for line. And it just got more absurd as he kept rambling. So a lot of people were saying, maybe he caught a few of those beers that were being thrown on 16 and then went on his Twitter rant. But overall, love the Phoenix Open. Wish I had a better week, but I'm looking forward to this week as well.
Yeah, same. Looking forward to this week, and always love that tournament. And I kind of mentioned last week, these super difficult courses, I don't like as much in general, but that's what we got at Riviera this week. So why don't you tell the people about this course?
Yeah, very classical course. It's a par 71. It's in LA, Riviera Country Club. 7,300 yards. Doesn't seem overly long on paper, but it's sneaky long. You're going to have a lot of long iron shots, and early reports are that the course is extremely firm. There's been basically no rain in the area for most of the year, so it's going to play firm. It's going to play fast. It's going to play difficult, like you mentioned. The fairways here are going to be very tough to hit. You're going to hear a lot of people talking about the kikuyu grass, which provides great lies in the fairway and really bad lies in the rough. It's more of a, I would say a placement type of course off the tee where you want to miss on the right side of the hole to kind of give yourself a chance into some of these greens. And for the most part, you just have to take advantage of the par fives and then kind of hold on the par threes and par fours because they're extremely difficult. You do have the drivable par 10, number 10, par four, which I don't know. A lot of people like it. I hate it because my guys always get right up by the green and end up making a bogey somehow. That's just how it works. Then you have number one, which is one of the easiest holes in golf. It's like a 500-yard par five. So got to take advantage of those holes. Kind of hang on the rest of the course. There's no water on the course. The greens are very tricky. You're going to see a lot of three putts, a lot of misses within inside of 5 feet. I think it's the most on tour actually. So if you like sweating those putts, you're certainly going to get your money worth this week. And that's because of the, Pga grass on the greens. So for me, I'm looking at, driving distance over driving accuracy. You're going to have to be good off the tee. You got to be good with your long irons, a lot of approach shots from, 150 plus, 175 plus, 200 plus, and then just experience in California, experience on tough tracks. And I think bogey avoidance might come into play this week as well. What are you looking at?
Yeah, I like bogey avoidance as well. I think on this course, and then otherwise, just guys who are really good tee to green. You give yourself more of those 5-6 foot putts. While you might miss a few, you're still going to be better off than your competitors. And this is the tournament every year where I say the instant tilt is maybe a little more justified than we see a lot of weeks in DFS because the first hole, this is a hard course, but the first hole is one of the easiest holes you'll see on the PGA Tour. It's basically a par five. Par four playing as a par five these days. So you are allowed to tilt if your golfer does not birdie number one. And then you got the guys starting on the back with that tricky drivable par four 10th hole. I saved a screenshot of Spieth a few years ago, being in the greenside bunker with his tee shot and making an 8, which is just one of the things that makes this course pretty iconic. So
and if you remember last year in the playoff, I mean, Tony Finau hit a perfect drive right in front of the green. Max Homa hit it behind a tree. They both end up making par. So, I mean, that hole is just wild.
Yeah, it is. You can't take anything for granted if you're, out of position off the tee or in good position off the tee. If you're one bad shot and you overrun the green or something, all of a sudden you're in the bunker too. So, and struggling to get out of there with a bogey. All right, let's start breaking it down. We've got, I think, the top 11 in the world golf rankings here this week. So our usual plethora of golfers at the top. We've got, again, the same guys that we've seen some of the last couple of weeks. We've got Cantlay and Rahm up there. We've got JT, Morikawa, and Dustin Johnson in the field this week. So those are your 5-figure salary golfers. Surprises me a little bit to see DJ above 10K, just the way he's played comparatively speaking over the last 6 months. I guess it's all dependent on odds, so I'm surprised he's got such good odds if you want to play it that way instead. But your thoughts on the golfers here at the top?
Yeah, in terms of DJ, I mean, it's all course history baked. I mean, last 8 trips here, no finish is worse than T16. He's got a win, 3 more top fives. He did play pretty well at Farmers. I think he gained 8 strokes tee to green. Played well in Saudi as well with the top 10. So I get it. It is hard for me to justify that over some of the other guys up here. For me, I wrote about on Twitter today, it feels like Rahm is, if you're playing roulette and nobody ever bets the green space, eventually it's going to hit and take everyone's bets off the table. And I kind of feel that way this week. I mean, he's 8-1 in some places. It just feels like, man, he's playing his B- game and he's continuously, putting out top 15 finishes. So I think he kind of puts it all together this week. He's played well here in the past. Doesn't have a weakness. He likes difficult courses, likes California, all that stuff. And then Cantlay, it's hard to go wrong with him as well. I think he's finished no worse than T11 since August, which is kind of crazy. He's got the course history to back it up as well. I do worry that this is his 3rd week in a row. That's my only concern with Cantlay. Typically, he hadn't been playing in back-to-back weeks, with his back injury there for a couple of years, and now this is his 3rd week in a row. I think this is one of the first times he's done that. So yeah, I like those 2 up top. Certainly no issue with Morikawa, DJ, JT, but if I'm deciding between the 5, I'm going to go Rahm and then Cantlay.
Boy, Cantlay, I think, is really, really interesting. Like at some point, doesn't the fatigue kick in?
Yeah,
Like those
that's
are
what
two real tough losses he's had his last two starts.
that's true. And the
And you
third
could
week in
tell
a
he was
row.
bummed on Sunday.
I mean, we saw it with Hovland too. I mean, he, was playing a bunch overseas, and then, he talked about being tired last week and ended up missing the cut. So I don't know though. I mean, he's got a chance to get to number one in the world if he wins, and Rahm finishes fifth or worse, I think. So yeah, I mean, this is a course that he loves. He's from California, I think. I don't know. It's hard to go wrong with anyone up here, but for me, they don't have any weaknesses. While JT, Morikawa can both lose it on the greens a little bit, and then DJ, like you mentioned, we just haven't seen a lot of them recently.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to go against any of these guys. You're just trying to find an angle to, perhaps exclude one of them or something, because that's
Yeah.
what's tough in these deep fields. It's tough to limit down your player pool. And when you've only got 120 golfers, you don't want to end up with 60 golfers in your player pool. I'm one that likes to really narrow it down, and sometimes it burns me. And I didn't play Cantlay last week. And I think I wrote him up as a fade, and then I bet him on Sunday when he was playing well. So very, recency bias against Cantlay on my end, because he's burned me a couple times, but certainly hard to deny the consistency that he's shown of late. But I like Morikawa. I think that his irons, when he's on, he's the best on tour. And the putter does worry me a little bit, and if you're going to miss some 3 or 4 footers, he's going to miss some of those. But I think this is a spot where maybe he bounces back. I think Thomas is interesting for tournaments as well. Despite the course history, I'm probably off a DJ this week, so I'll probably end up with Rahm, Thomas, Morikawa in my player pool. Probably exclude Cantlay to my own detriment, but we'll see where that leads as we get closer to Thursday.
It is tough to hit the X on any of those guys.
It is, and I always do, because I just try to narrow it down. So probably be DJ and Cantlay, and then I'll be sweating them, not running away with the tournament. So the 9K range is really interesting. We always talk about nobody wanting to play guys off a win. So there you got Scheffler at 8% and our projected ownership right now, which is super interesting. So Schauffele, Rory, Hovland, Matsuyama, Cam Smith, Koepka. These are guys we often see in that upper tier, but they're the 9Ks in this tournament. So again, I like Hovland. Super impressed with basically. He missed the cut last week, but I mean, that was after a win on the Euro Tour and a travel week, and then trying to tee it up again. I'm not going to hold that against him. Riviera is a course that often has a learning curve, and despite that, he still finished 5th here in his debut. So I like Hovland in the 9K range. Who are you looking at in here?
Yeah, I like Hovland too. The ball striking is so good that he can afford to lose a couple strokes on and around the greens and still finish pretty high up there. And you mentioned, I mean, he's got 3 wins in his last 6 starts worldwide. I think the miscut last week was actually a benefit. Gives him a couple days to rest up, get ready for the bigger event this week. So I do think you're getting a nice discount there. I like that call quite a bit. I like Xander too. He's a California kid. He's never finished worse than T23 here. And it probably should have been in the playoff last week, but he gained 13 strokes tee to green, by far the best in the field. So I really think, Xander is an interesting guy at 9,900. I do think there's enough value this week that you can play a guy in the 10Ks and a guy in the 9Ks and feel pretty good about it, especially with the smaller field, like you were mentioning earlier. So those 2 would be my favorites. I do have some interest in Rory. He's played here a ton over the years. This often gets compared to Augusta and to Quail Hollow. He's played great at both of those events. And obviously coming in pretty good form. I mean, he's 12th and 3rd on his last 2 starts overseas. So I don't mind Rory. And then just naturally, just because I like those other 3 guys, I'll probably be underweight on Hideki and Scheffler. And then Brooks, I just can't play Brooks. I mean, everyone thought he was going to run away with it, but he talks about how he doesn't like California golf. He's just always talking about
he doesn't like anything.
Yeah, he's talking out of both sides of his mouth, because he's always, I'm not a grinder, and then now he's saying he's motivated because he's not top 20 in the world. You just never know with Brooks, but if he burns me, he burns me.
Yeah, I generally take that stance with him as well. I tend to always be underweight on Smith too, but you know, he just worries me because you feel like he's so volatile. But when you look at his results, I guess over the last, well, he missed the cut at the Sony Open after winning the Tournament of Champions, so that's just kind of the way it is. But back to the fall swing, he had a 4th, a 9th, a 15th, a 10th. So it's just he's been more consistent than he was earlier in his career. So should probably come around on him a little more than I have. But I just think I'll probably live with Matsuyama, Hovland, do like Rory as well, kind of range with the mid to upper 9Ks. So and no qualms with Xander either. So a lot of my lineups will maybe start with, say, 2 players around that 10K range. So if you play like, okay, I tagged up Morikawa and Hovland as my favorites. If you play them, you're at 75.50 per player for your last 4 spots on DraftKings, which is still more than doable, given the depth of this field. So I don't think that hamstrings your lineup at all. You can still maybe even get another player in the 8K range. And since I don't like the lower end of the 9K range, I don't feel like I'm sacrificing a ton there. So that is my thought. And then that brings us to, any other thoughts on that 9K and up for you?
No, I think that covers it, but I agree with you. I like starting with Rom Xander. It gives you a little bit less than the pairing that you mentioned, but you can easily get away with it. There's, probably 8 guys that I like in the 6K range this week, which is a lot more than usual.
Yeah, especially with only 120 golfers in the field. So it's definitely doable this week. And then you're kind of lower. You'll end up being lower on the 85 to 9,500 range or whatever. But I don't think there's a lot of must-haves in that range. I mean, Spieth, even his biggest proponents probably wouldn't label him as a must-have at this point. Just been too inconsistent. Burns has struggled his last few starts. Im's even been a little hit or miss. I love Zalatoris as much as the next guy, and that win is coming for Zalatoris. And the one thing that Zalatoris has shown consistently over the last year is that he plays better on the tougher courses. We've seen him put up top 5s at really difficult tracks in really strong fields. So the only guy that I feel like I absolutely want to get some exposure to in the higher end of the 8K range is Zalatoris, despite the playoff loss to Luke List a couple weeks ago. He's the real deal. Wouldn't surprise me if he wins a major, given the way that he tends to play on these tougher courses. So he is far and away my favorite in the upper end of the 8Ks. Who are you looking at in there?
Yeah, I agree with you 100% on Zalatoris. He did have COVID, so I do want to see, if he had like bad symptoms or lost weight or whatever, because
dude can't lose any weight.
Well, they were saying he had gained 15 pounds before Torrey. So I mean, he didn't look like he had gained that much weight, but he did gain a bunch of distance off the tee, and that's obviously going to come in handy here. You mentioned, he loves hard courses. He's even labeled himself as a major specialist. And he's actually a decent lag putter. He misses a lot of the short ones because of that, that stroke that he has, but he's actually pretty good from long distances, and these are pretty big greens. So yeah, I love that call. By far my favorite play from, 86 to 9,000, pretty much the only guy that I'm looking at.
Yeah, same in here as well. I can maybe play a little Sung Jae. I'm fine with that, but not a guy that I think you have to have. So the big question, as I was going through lineup HQ here right before the show, and you've had your tags posted, and by the way, you can find all of our great content over at rotogrinders.com. Sign up for a premium subscription. Happy to bring you along, and if you want to chat during the show, you can do that without a premium subscription. We can chat with you in the live stream chat channel, which is part of our free Rotogrinders Discord. You can access that, rotogrinders.com/Discord, and join the live stream chat channel. We do have some channels that are reserved for premium subscribers, but you can chat for free along with us as long as you have a Rotogrinders free membership on the live stream chat channel in the Discord server. So we'll see you there. Anyway, as I was looking through our premium content, looking through the lineup HQ, we all have little dots, little tags that we put in on our favorite players. And Noto, I see, is going back to the well on one Tony Finau, which, if we learned anything from the beginning of the show, means that a miscut might be coming. But all right, the last couple months have not been good for him, so you're going to have to give me the really good sales pitch on Tony here.
Yeah, I mean, my thought's pretty simple. If I played him last week at a higher price point, at a course that he doesn't like as much, I might as well go back to the well this week. Should have won in the playoff here last year. He's got a great course history, and he has gained on approach in 9 straight. So the driver's been a little, wonky at times, and then the short game's always hit or miss, but pretty good putter on Pga greens. So I don't mind going back to Tony. I want to see what his ownership is. So I don't mind him. I think a lot of people are going to go to Bubba. I certainly get it. Second in Saudi, T14 last week, and he's won here 3 times. So I want to see, what are you doing with Bubba this week? Because if you just look at long-term stats, you would never play him if you didn't know his course history.
Yeah, I think the course history and the run up of form make it interesting. I mean, he had all 4 of his rounds were sub 70 last week, so it was consistent, solid, and came out with a top 15. Like, if he was going to be 20% owned, I would be pretty comfortable not playing him. But, we've got him at 7.8%. I think that's pretty respectable. If the ownership number stays where we've got it, I think I will play some.
Yeah, and that might be a product of everyone spending up for the 9 and 10K guys and then having a dip in the 7s.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, if he's going to stay at that, I definitely like him. I hadn't loaded up the ownership projections yet. So, yeah, and it's an even year. Bubba always plays well in even years. I don't know why.
Sold at that point. All right, so we got Watson, we got Finau at lower ownership. The rest of the 8K range we have at slightly higher ownership. Max Homa always tends to be kind of in that low to mid teens, but he's a little pricey for me this week in this field. I think I'm out on Homa. Adam Scott, really interesting, had a strong first 3 days in Phoenix, and then lost 1 billion strokes from tee to green on Sunday. I didn't follow his Sunday round all that close, and so I saw that Adam Scott had a poor Sunday, and I figured, well, Adam Scott, must have had a terrible day with the putter. And then I see that Adam Scott was over par on Sunday despite gaining 2.5 strokes putting, which was wild to me. I'm like, what? Wait a minute. Adam Scott had a below average round and gained 2.5 strokes putting. He lost 4.3 strokes from tee to green on Sunday alone, which was just, that's abnormal for him. And that the first 3 days, it was the opposite. The usual struggles a bit with the putter. And was really good from tee to green. So not sure what to make of that one poor round. We talked about him last week on the show. So I'm fine with Adam Scott, pretty neutral on it overall. I really like Fitzpatrick at 8,100. And I'm targeting a lot of bombers this week, but Fitzpatrick is one guy. He's going to hit fairways. He's going to hit greens, and he's got 2 top 10s in a row. So maybe we're finally seeing kind of the breakout from him. So 8,100, I think, is a very fair price for Fitzpatrick. I'll probably bet him as well at that. The odds are pretty manageable, or you can bet him for a top 10 at like 4-1. So definitely overweight Fitzpatrick, all DFS formats and in the betting markets this week. I think you can make a case for Scott as well. Anybody else you like above 8,000?
Yeah, I like Fitzy as well. He's a guy that I play a ton, especially on harder courses, but I was looking at his numbers, and everyone just labels him as a great long iron player. And then you look at his proximity numbers, and they're pretty terrible from, long range. So is that just a thing that, somebody said once and everyone kind of ran with it, or?
I don't know. It's weird. It is weird to me too, because if you look at some of those numbers, like his approach numbers, they've never been elite. And I think, we kind of attribute that to in the past. Well, he plays more on the European tour. And I do think that's still a fair point. Most of his PGA Tour results have come on more difficult events. Those tend to be the ones that he plays. And in the stronger fields, you're not going to grade out as well statistically when you compare it to the overall numbers for the year, when you've got guys playing at the John Deere Classic and on some of these pitch and putt courses. I don't have all the deep data and the relative field strength at my fingertips here to back all that up, but I think that's part of it. You know, he's not playing the 25 under events really most of the time.
Yeah, I mean, the rest of his numbers are solid. You know, he does gain strokes on approach. I was just looking at, you know, he's actually better with his wedges than in terms of proximity than his long irons, which it just surprised me because everyone just labels him as a great long iron guy. But yeah, T5 here last year, no issue with Fitzy. Gooch is a guy that I think a lot of people are going to play. He's been in great form. He's been a top 30 machine for the last 6 months now, and he's played here at least 3 times. No finish worse than T20. So I think he's going to be popular at 8K. He does feel a little too cheap, and I'm always fine with Adam Scott on these difficult courses. So I agree with you, you know, on that bottom 8K range.
Part of what stands out in a field like this is that when we go from here to the rest of the field, we don't have anybody projected above 15% ownership. The highest guy we've got the rest of the way is Luke List at 15.4%. So you've got the freedom to basically play who you want, regardless of ownership. Really, in this tournament as a whole, just because the field is so strong that things are kind of naturally going to spread out. So I do think that's interesting as we get here to the 7,900 range and below. And there's just a lot of strong options. So if we looked at from like 7,500 to 7,900, there's about 10 golfers there. That includes Seamus Power. Noto and I finally get to do a victory lap for fading him for once, but the rest of our rosters didn't pan out either. So that didn't all work together on the right week, but we finally got a miscut, though. I believe it was just on the number for Seamus last week. So your thoughts on the 75 to 7,900 range?
Yeah, we finally got him right for once. It was right on the number. So what do we do now? I mean, at lower ownership, do we go back to him?
Zig when they zag. I don't know. I don't
I mean,
have a
he's
strong
been
take
awesome
there.
for months and months, and now finally nobody wants to play him. So I might go back.
I think so. I think I can be sold.
Yeah. And if you look at his numbers, you know, I always thought of him as a really good ball striker, but he's like top 50 in this field in all 4 categories. And he's actually really good around the greens, which I forgot to mention that in the intro. These greens are some of the toughest to hit on the PGA Tour. John Rahm led the field last year, and he missed 19 greens over the course of the week. So if the best guy in the field's hitting 70% of greens, you know, some of the worst guys, ball strikers they're gonna be scrambling a ton. So I don't mind targeting the guys that are good around the green, and that kind of goes into bogey avoidance too. So those two kind of do overlap a little bit, but just wanted to note that. Back up to the top. I think Sergio's interesting. He's a guy that's been playing well overseas. He's got 5 straight top 30s worldwide, and he had a great course history here for a while. I think he had 3 straight top 15s, and then the last couple of years he hasn't been great, but his form has kind of slid off during that stretch. So I don't mind going back to him. He's a guy that's very good total driver of the ball. I also like Paul Casey. I've always liked Paul Casey in these strong fields. He just always seems to be underpriced. We've only seen him one time this year. He was T12 overseas. So at least he got one tournament under his belt. He's never missed a cut here. He's 7 for 7. Nearly won. I think he lost in a playoff to James Hahn one year. So he's going to be my favorite guy in that mid 7K range.
You see the video that the PGA Tour posted on Twitter about an hour before the show about the greens. They placed the ball. I didn't place it, but maybe dropped it from, say, shoulder level on the edge of a green, and took it 29 seconds to roll all the way through the green, all the way down the ridge to pass the other side of the green. So, yeah, they're playing a little fast right now. Obviously, they'll slow them up a little bit, but watching that video gave me vibes of Sergio Garcia at the Players a few years ago, that one year where the grass was just brown. That's probably been like 7 or 8 years.
That was a Ken Duke year, right?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I remember
he shot like 6 strokes better than anyone else in the field that day.
It was the year where, the Saturday round was awful. I think Russell Knox made like a 10 on a hole. I don't know.
Yeah, that was on 16, the par 3 or 17.
Sergio was just complaining. And I just watched that ball roll off the green, and I thought of Sergio for some reason. And he's here at 7,800, but it doesn't mean I like him. And then they followed it up with another video 30 minutes ago of the green covered in hail. So apparently they had a little storm roll through there.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
just a little bit ago. Pretty large pellets of hail too, but pretty rare in that part of the country. All right. We got myself sidetracked for a second. So I like Casey as well at 7,600. Hasn't played much at all on the PGA Tour lately, but does stand out at that price. You can see that your model numbers like him as well. So he is hard to pass up at 7,600. As you know, if you're playing cash games or something, he's probably got to be in there. No issue with most of these guys in here. They're all solid, but I think Casey ranks up near the top of the list for me. I like Henley as well. Can be sold on Seamus Power. So I'll probably narrow that down a little bit, but I like those three in particular. Going to the bottom end of the 7K range, I saw Patrick Reed yesterday at 100-1 on one of the sports books. I can't remember which one it was, but that makes me smile a little bit because we have a hate relationship. He doesn't like me, and I never really get him right. So the numbers, the statistical numbers for Reed have really been going downhill over the last year, and pretty shocking. You wouldn't have expected him to be 7,400 on DraftKings in any field, but here we are, and nobody really thinks they got to play him either. I mean, Peters is getting a little more love. List is getting a little more love. McNeely's getting some love. So, yeah, I just kind of strange to see him be 7,400 and then also be an afterthought at that price. But your thoughts on the rest of the 7Ks?
Yeah, I mean, my model only goes back 18 months, and even at 7,400, he rates out as a terrible play. Even at 100-1, he rates out as a bad bet. Obviously, he's a much better player long term, and he had that case where he had double pneumonia, so we can probably throw out a lot of those results. But yeah, I mean, I'm not itching to play Patrick Reed. The 7,400. I do like Peters, so he's won twice overseas, and he actually won at this course in college, and he finished second here on the PGA Tour. So he's got a lot of good recent results, a lot of good course history, a lot of good vibes around these parts. So I certainly get the Peters love. Yeah, what are you doing with Patrick Reed? I don't know.
No, I'm not.
Yeah,
No.
I don't think I can go there either.
Too ugly.
Corey Connors, I think, is interesting. I do worry about it as around the green, but similar to Victor Hovland, his ball striking can be so good that he doesn't have to worry about around the green as much. His form hasn't been great. I think he lost strokes on approach last week, which is pretty rare for him. But 7,300 seems like a nice discount there. I like Matt McNeely. He did withdraw before last week's event, but it was undisclosed, so we don't know if it was injury related, personal, whatever. But he's back this week. He's a California kid. He tends to play the longer course as well. And he missed the cut here on the number last year, so not too worried about that. I think Lonto Griffin is interesting as well. He's been playing good. He's 2 for 2 here. And then who's the other guy I want to bring up? I don't know. What are your takes down here?
Boy, Theegala was interesting last week. He was just eating up the crowd, which I thought was pretty. I'm not really on him here, but he's got a bright future, and it was really interesting to see him playing up to the crowd when a lot of people would have been wetting their pants in that type of situation with a couple big name players on the PGA Tour. So it was cool to see him embrace that. I'm with you on Connors, especially at that ownership. I tend to play him a lot on these types of courses, so I'm in there. If you want to play the bomber angle, Thomas Peters, I think is interesting. He's had a couple really good results on the European Tour. So I like Peters. I like Connors. We're pretty much in agreement on this range. I think.
What about Tringale? Seems like nobody wants to play him, even though he kind of goes. So he's been miscut, 7th miscut, 3rd miscut. So obviously win.
Which is weird. He used to be the guy. And it was, if you go back before that, you go back to the Zozo, it's 2nd miscut, 7th miscut, 3rd miscut.
Even better.
So
that means 1st or 2nd.
It's right. Top 2, top 3 finishing coming. That's weird because he used to be the guy that would finish like 30th every week. And everyone's complaint about him was that he didn't have any upside. Now he's got the upside, and he was really bad at Pebble Beach, though. Just really bad.
Maybe he's tired of not winning and is being more aggressive instead of just.
But that's not going to play well here. I think
true.
I'm out.
All right. I think I'm in for MME, not a single entry play or anything.
It's not a strong take by any means. I'm not going to actively try to talk anyone off of him, but the guy that I think is going to get pumped up a little bit more than his ownership now. You see it on social media. Well, Molinari is now a native. This is his home course. He plays Riviera all the time, and oh, by the way, he's been better lately as well. So, are you buying the narratives with Molinari at all?
I am. He's just a guy I like to play for whatever reason. I think I've won money on him in the past, which is pretty rare for any golfer these days. So yeah, I like him this week. You mentioned he's a member here, playing a little bit better. You could certainly do a lot worse. I think I bet him as a top 20. I probably won't have more than 10% in MME, but I think you can include him for sure.
Before I forget, don't forget, sign up for Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com, download their app. Plenty of good betting stuff over on Prize Picks this week. Promo code Grinders get you a 100% deposit match up to $100 if you use promo code Grinders with your first deposit on Prize Picks. So again, you can a lot of times get finishing positions for some of these kind of 7,500 or so players. You can get them, under 30 and a half, 35 and a half, something like that. So find some of these mid-range players like a Connors or a Peters or a Casey particularly. You can match them together, try to get a couple of them right and get a bigger boost on your winnings. But plenty of good stuff to check out over there at Prize Picks, promo code Grinders. All right. I'm in on Molinari, I think, as well at 7K. The other guy that you mentioned earlier, I'm not sure whether you brought it up again or not, but Carlos Ortiz coming off that fun Sunday on at Phoenix.
Yeah, we talk about guys finishing strong on Sunday, carrying it over to the next week. I certainly don't mind that. He's long off the tee. He's pretty good with his irons. He's a good putter on Pga greens. So, and he has a top 10 here in the past. So, yeah, I love Ortiz this week.
Another guy that I think is a nice bargain down there is Eric Van Rooyen, EVR at 7K and basically no ownership. And he's gone 25th, 20th in January on the PGA Tour, and then 12th in Abu Dhabi and 4th in Dubai on the Euro Tour with quite a few birdies in those events. So you usually like EVR. I can probably talk you into some of him.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it makes me miss our former co-host Toe Tag and Tambo, because me and him would always bring him up, EVR up anytime it was a strong field.
There you
that was
go.
kind of our easy way to say play EVR. So yeah, I like it.
All right, he's 7K, so that's kind of round out this range. Now you mentioned you like some guys in the sub 7K range this week, and we do have some guys getting a little bit of ownership, but nobody above 10%. Under 7K. So who are a couple of your favorites?
So I like Sebastian Munoz quite a bit. He's played here twice, made the cut both times. He's one of those guys that doesn't really have, any super strengths or weaknesses. He's kind of just pretty decent all around. And he gained over 9 strokes tee to green in Phoenix last week. So I think that's pretty promising. And then it would be a disservice if I didn't bring up Patrick Rogers. He loves this course, 5 straight top 30s here. California kid I guess he moved to California in high school. We gotta note that because one of our listeners called us out one time, but went to Stanford, loves this course. He's long off the tee, very good putter as well. So those two would be my favorites. Some other names that are at least interesting, Matt Wallace, Aaron Rise been playing well recently. Cameron Young's been really good recently as well. He's a bomber off the tee. This will be his first time, which I don't love, but I think there's a lot of interesting names with some upside down here.
Yeah, I like Rye is another guy that I tend to play a good bit as well, so I like him. Wise Wise was the chalky value last week. Missed the cut. He's 0 for 3 here. I was kind of shocked to see that he was one of our more popular selections, but people are sharp, so I like going back to that. Well, I think he's an interesting, top 10 bet or something, or a long shot bet if you want to try that. But so I like Wise at 6,700 in addition to most of those guys that you mentioned. I think those make for interesting roster roundouts when you're probably going to need, one guy around here. You mentioned Munoz. Obviously, Joel Damon's been playing fairly good golf. And most of these guys are in that 2, 3, 4% range. So like most of those plays, Probably not on Mito this week. He always gets a little bit of love, but and I like him too. But just with the learning curve here and the fact that there are quite a few options in this range, I'll probably be off of him. So anybody else you like kind of in the lower part of the 7K range or 6K range that you didn't already mention?
I was going to mention Mito because for the longest time, he was one of the better ball strikers on tour. His last 5 events, minus 1.2, minus 1.6, minus 4.3, and then he gained in the other 2. So it just seems like, the putter's been carrying him, which I never love when it comes to a good ball striker. So I'm with Dylan Ree off of Mito. Also going to be off Grillo, who is going to rate out well long term, but man, he's been so bad. I think T63 is his best finish in like 6 months. And he's not ball striking either. So I can't go there.
And he'll be putting them off the greens here if they keep him playing fast. So he'll be, yeah, no thanks. I'm probably off of that. You can stick to the other guys that we mentioned. Rye, I think, is a solid pick at 6,400 too. And, we've given out maybe 6 or 7 guys in the 6K range that usually it's tough to pull teeth to get 2 or 3. And we've got quite a few this week. So you can afford to be a little bit more selective with them. So with that, I think we're pretty much through it here, and that'll about wrap us up for this week. So this should be a fun tournament. Again, not necessarily a birdie fest. The cut almost guaranteed to come in over par. So you can be worried about a bogey if it happens like on the first hole, the super easy par 5, but otherwise just got to prepare for some bogeys and par being a decent score. So we've got the Honda Classic next week. Be another event that tends to provide a challenge for these golfers as they gear up for the bigger stretch of tournaments in March and April. Of course, leading up to the Players Championship in mid-March and the Masters in the early part of April. So we will be back next week to break down the Honda Classic at PGA National as the tour moves from the West Coast to the East Coast. If you are, an East Coaster, you'll have to get used to checking those lineups at like 6 or 7 a.m. As opposed to things not locking until like late morning. So get those alarms ready for next week, but we will be here as usual to break it down for you. So for Noto and our producer, Steve, I'm Justin. Good luck this week, everybody. And we will see you back here next Tuesday. Take care.